It's always nice to be right after lunch. Congratulations on the iPad. So let's see if we get the presentation up. Yeah, I have to go back. I think we're facing major challenges in IT nowadays. And this was true 10 years ago. And I think it's still true. I believe you've been talking about AI today, which will have a massive impact on our society, on our businesses, and definitely on IT. But to do that, we have to keep our IT house in order. Now, I would like to go through with you through IT performance and what you can do to keep that in order, to keep it cost efficient, to keep that running, so you can face other challenges. So let's go through some of the predictions IDC has made, and you've probably seen this today. But I want to focus a little bit on 3 subjects. So obviously, AI is going to change a lot in our IT. But it's not just going to be IT. You will see your lines of businesses will use IT strategies. And you need to support that. You need to become part of that. Now, in some industries, this is very common. I myself come from a banking background and an insurance background. And within banking, we have group CIOs and we have business CIOs. Business CIOs focusing mostly on how to use the business applications and focusing on getting business. But we'll definitely see more federated AI strategies within the line of businesses. And we also need to leverage the organizational changes. So all this is happening very quickly. Application development, immense impact as well, what AI can do nowadays. And I'm sure all of you are aware of this. But AI runs on data. Our world runs on data. And I think the biggest challenge we have as IT departments is getting the data sorted. How do we work with that? How do we get a data-centric culture? And when we talk about culture, it is not just the IT culture. It is the company culture, the business culture as well. These are massive challenges that you're facing. And then the one which is under IT performance, but it's actually about your business. Will your business be able to get the digital revenue goals? And according to IDC, 75% will not, which is a major challenge. You need to help those businesses how to set that up, how to go through this digital transformation. With all these challenges, you still need to keep your house in order. We are the engineers of our businesses. We make it happen. When we look at performance, we have to focus on satisfaction of our users, of our customers. We need to focus on our employee satisfaction. Nowadays, IT is all about our people. But we do need to focus on operational excellence as well. We need to look at our processes. We need to look at the best practice models. And who gets more budget every year in IT? Who has a raise in their budget in their IT department last year? Can I see some hands? Who got more budget last year? Who had a reduction in their IT budget last year? And this is what's happening. A lot of our budgets stay the same. Some lucky people get more budget, and they sell it to the board in a proper way. And when McKinsey comes to town, you need to reduce 15%, whatever it takes. So we need to be efficient in our costs. And we need to tackle all these challenges as well. Which also means we need to understand our future state. We need to plan ahead. From a technical point of view, this is everything you do all day. You have an immense amount of priorities already. It's easy just to focus on what's new. But if you don't focus on what's already here and optimize it and ensure it's running perfectly, you're going to spend too much money than you have to be. Now, IDC has a company, it's called Metri, and what we do is we benchmark IT. We actually measure what's happening in your IT. These measurements are translated into actionable items, so you can decide on what to do. I would advise you to put in measurements in all your processes. But if you measure, you need to know the benchmark. You need to know exactly what's good and what's not good enough. So my advice will always be measure what's happening in your IT. Make sure you get those dashboards and those details. I have a couple of examples for you to show what you can do today, tomorrow, in improving your IT performance, reducing your cost. What we see when we benchmark with our clients is when we look at the ledger, we see a lot of waste, financial waste in the ledger. Financial waste that's translated into operational issues. And I'll show you later. I'll go a little bit deeper on that ledger element. What we also see is we spend a lot of money on contracts with suppliers. We negotiate, we select, we contract, and then nothing. Only when it goes wrong, we pick up the contract and we take charge. And that's too late. There's a lot of waste that's happening in your sourcing with suppliers. You can do something about that, and I'll show you an example. And again, in your portfolio, there's a huge, your change portfolio, there's a huge inefficiency, what I will show you, what you can do to fix that. Now, everybody knows about cloud and cloud performance, and I'll give some examples as well on going forward with cloud. I won't go into much detail on ADM because it's a huge subject, and they only gave me 20 minutes, and I can talk 2 hours for that. But there's a huge impact there as well, and I'll give you a short overview of what's happening there. This is a real-life example of a client we measured. For example, you would say, OK, so they're more expensive here and here and here. And on the business side, they're 9% better than their peers. Now, I know my competitor will do a percentage of revenue, and it will tell you how much you're spending on IT in relation to your revenue, and then compare it to other peers in your industry, which is valuable if you want to convince your board that they shouldn't cut you on budget. What we do a bottom-up analysis. We look actually at your application department, your business applications. So now this client is spending 9% less than their peers. Are they doing good? In this case, they didn't spend enough on removing technological debt, which means every year they are actually doing worse and worse and worse because they're not spending enough on cleaning up what they already have. So instead of saying, yes, you're doing good, because you're better than your peers, but you're not doing the right stuff, looking at what they are doing is really important to understand if you're doing it right or you're doing enough. But sometimes it's also simple. For example, in this case, we looked at their workplaces, and their license management was lacking. And that is such a shame, because you're spending money on licensing you don't use, and you don't clean them up. And it's a fairly simple thing to do. It's a fairly simple thing to look at your service management processes. It's a fairly simple thing to look at your licensing and look a little bit deeper and understand what you're doing in process-wise and in results. And by looking at the financial data and compare that to your operational data, you can actually see what's happening and if you're doing good enough. So looking at these elements, doing a deep dive from a cost perspective, but linking it to the operational processes, you will actually see what can be removed in waste and what can be optimized. There are many business cases or use cases for these types of analysis, but on average, we see 10% cost reduction. and it doesn't need reorganization. It doesn't need reducing your workforce. It's simply cleaning up what's happening within your organization. It's simply looking at what you should be doing and what you're not doing. And then you see that where you're actually better than your peers, but you don't do exactly what you need to be doing, then you can understand what you should be doing, where there's waste in your processes. Now, cloud is interesting. I had a big energy company that went to the cloud, and he was advised by the big consulting companies. They made a roadmap for him, and they said, we're going to the cloud as quickly as possible. And we said to him, if you do that, you're going to overspend more than 15 million euros on your cloud bill. And he didn't believe me. He said, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to follow the process from the big supplier. They went to the cloud. And 2 months later, he called me. And he said, I'm overspending 2 million euros a month now. And why is that? Because your applications don't run as efficiently in the cloud as they would do in the old environment. So you need to do a cloud readiness assessment for your application environment and fix those elements that makes these applications be costly in your cloud. And sometimes that can be as simple as 2 days of work for a programmer in fixing some SQL statements so it does run efficiently. So it's not about months and months of work of re-architecturing your application. It's very focused on the elements where the application is not running efficiently within your cloud. You're going to save a lot of money if you do a cloud readiness assessment on your applications and fix it. And there are small fixes can be very impactful. And of course, we all know about FinOps in cloud. There are tools around, and it's great. You should be using them. But a big element in the uses of these tools is the governance. You have to be in contact with your business. You need to set up governance. The tools overpromise and underdeliver. So you need data on the effectiveness of these elements. So invest in a good FinOps. It's going to save you a lot of money. The numbers are impressive. 15, 20, 35%. But we actually see it in the market. These are not made-up numbers. So have a good look at your own cloud bill, because you can save a lot of money there. And I already talked about suppliers and suppliers' performance. We track 4,000 KPIs within IT operations. And these are context-driven KPIs. So it's not even a relational database that we have, because the performance KPI depends on the delivery model. It varies on the complexity, on the service delivery, on the volume. So and the cost, in this case, this is actual cost, not benchmark cost. This is what they spend on it. So there's a relationship between those 5. And you can do this for network. You can do this for server management. You can do this for elements within cloud. You can do this for everything. So the KPIs are very detailed. This also means that if you implement some of these KPIs, and it depends on the contract, but if you start measuring what the supplier is actually delivering based on the contract that you already negotiated on average, we get 8% out of that contract on unnecessary bills. I have one client in wind energy. They saved 15% on the billing alone, just checking what they should be billing versus the actual service that they provided, and what all is within that system. So there's a huge amount of waste laying ready for you to reap into your contract management. So set up contract management. There are great models around that you can implement, frameworks, and you stand to gain a lot of money here. And the last one I want to go into, because I only have 5 minutes left, is your portfolio management. Now, I've been in the industry for 35 years. I've been a project manager myself as well. Maybe most of us, as CIO, have started out as project manager as well. When we make project plans and budgets, we do a work breakdown, and we do a guesstimation. I would call it a guesstimation, because it's based on my work breakdown, and it's based on my experience. Then, I've been in the steering committee many times. I've worked for banks and government agencies. I've spent my days in the steering committees. And you get these stoplight reports. And it will be green, red, or orange. But never have I ever got a report like this, telling me exactly how predictable my teams in the project were in delivering the deliverables. If you visualize the time they used for the delivery of the deliverables that they promised you to deliver, and put it in time, you would immediately see how well these teams are doing. Now, in the beginning, any team will start low. But within a couple of weeks, they should hit the 80% mark. I would recommend you, if you're in any project management steering committee, ask the project manager to deliver it. It can easily be done retrospectively. Ask him to tell exactly what he planned on time for a deliverable, plot it in time with the actual usage. And you will immediately see that projects will go wrong. And projects that go wrong not only deliver late, they're more expensive too to fix. That can be calculated beforehand. There is a formal method by Cosmic and NESMA and other parties that have huge databases that use a formal cost estimation practice. And then we can do a second opinion on your budget. If your project, we see in this data, 33% of all projects are not too late, but they're just under budgeted. Our project managers are optimists. They're terrible optimists as well. And sometimes, even us as CIOs are optimists as well, because otherwise we can't sell it to the business. Making a clear-cut cost estimation through a formal method with data behind it will allow you to give a good time-to-market date, a clear budget that you need to set for this project, and you don't have to be replanning all these initiatives all the time because you have so many projects that are being late. In the end, and this is counterintuitive, I understand that. In the end, if you accept that your project's going to be 30% more expensive, you will still save 20%. Because if your projects are underestimated, they will be late anyway, and you need to fix it, and fixing it is very expensive. On average, you save 20% on fixing costs. So my advice will be twofold. Start asking for these types of graphs from your project manager on the delivery of the deliverables, and do a formal cost estimation of your projects as well. Now, I haven't talked about ADM, and I only have 1 minute, and then I'll sign off. But AI, low code, no code, are fueling the productivity of your ADM processes. I just got off the phone with a huge bank in Germany. They have a big outsourcing contracts. We have models that can show that insourcing is just as expensive as outsourcing it. Because local language, local culture, quality assessment, proper processes within your ADM processes, measuring the productivity of your teams will ensure that not only will it be the same money, even though you need to spend more money because it's locally sourced, it will be more efficient, it will be higher quality, it will be easier to maintain, so the cost of ownership of the entire application will go down. So you don't have to go outsourcing anymore if you implement some of these processes. So the outsourcing and the near insourcing nowadays with these tools and these methods, including AI, including low-code, no-code, are almost the same in a TCO point of view. That's something to keep in mind, which can increase or lower your cost from your ADM processes as well. That's all I had to say. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out after the session. Thank you.